Hey, everybody. Welcome to our weekly preview show. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball, and I am Dan Bespris. Yes, this is an Ace Ventura Pet Detective shirt under my sweatshirt. If that's the only thing on your mind, you are immediately a friend of mine. We have actually a relatively straightforward week coming up. Week 12. It's the 12th week of the season. I don't care what Yahoo calls it. It's the 11th period. But you can't call it a week if it's not a week. I'm a stickler. They don't call me pedantic for nothing. Anyway, this coming week has all 7, 8, and 9 game slates every single day. It goes 9, 7, 8, 8, 7, 7, 9. Don't call that number. I think it's a sexy line. I actually have no idea. But what that means is there really aren't low traffic days mixed in. There aren't super high traffic days, but the fact that everybody plays 3 or 4 games this coming week makes streaming really interesting, but also very narrow in that there really is like one true way to stream for games this week. And if you miss that, then you can kind of do anything. Like second place is about 35 different options. So we'll go through some of those in a couple of minutes. We're also going to be talking about your weekly sit-start decisions if you happen to be in one of those godforsaken weekly leagues, which I know are still out there, and I find them somewhat annoying and a little bit complicated because if somebody gets hurt on Monday, you're just screwed. Your week is done. Unless your opponent also has someone hurt on Monday. That's your one. You're just like watching your opponent's team going, come on, somebody get hurt, which is a crummy way to watch and play fantasy basketball. You can find me on, where the hell am I? Twitter, at Dan Bespris, DANBESBRIS. Old Man Squad on Blue Sky, Old Man Squad Fantasy over on Instagram. Please take a moment also to hit the like button on our trade deadline live show. The link is in the show description. It's also the feature show on our YouTube page where you're obviously going to go to watch all of our stuff. We want to get to 1,000. We're at like 360 or something like that. 357 is the number right now, 358. So we're inching our way up there. We've got like 31, 32 days left before the show actually happens. I don't know. Maybe we'll get there. It's a good goal though, right? I think I did 700 last year back at the old spot. So, lofty expectations. Here is your weekly grid. We're going to go through basically the top 150, anybody that might be a choice. Karl-Anthony Towns exited the Knicks game on Saturday with some hamstring tightness. They have a 4-game week coming up. We've heard nothing. I think you basically just play him if he's in on Monday. If he's out, you probably rest him this coming week, which again, it sucks because you got a first rounder. But I'd be worried that he ends up missing more than one game. Hamstring stuff is weird. And, they're going to be a little bit nebulous about it. I don't want to get stuck with a 0. Especially on a week where everybody's playing 3 and 4 games and there's just no shortage of actual games played. Jalen Johnson, I think I would probably play this coming week, although Atlanta's schedule is not great and they don't go until Tuesday. So, man, that one's iffy. Sheesh, that's a hard one because you're not going to get any information on Johnson before you have to make your weekly sit start. I mean, I'm probably more likely to play Cat than I am Johnson because at least Karl-Anthony Towns has a 4-game week. Jalen Johnson only 3 on this road trip. I'd probably err towards... Crap, these are first-round guys. I don't know. Honest to God, I think the answer on both of these is I don't really know. If Cat plays on Monday, obviously that makes your life a lot simpler because then you just drop him into your lineup for the week, assuming he's fine. If he doesn't play on Monday, maybe you read the tea leaves a little bit on Cat. Like if he's close on Monday and then he gets ruled out last minute, you probably start him on the week. And if he's ruled out by like later tonight, we're recording the show on Sunday, then if he's ruled out for Monday a day in advance, you assume that he's probably going to miss a couple of ball games. As far as Jalen Johnson goes, he did play in that Lakers game. So I'm kind of wondering if it was just maybe re-aggravated a little bit on the back end of the back-to-back. Hard to say. slight lean towards playing both guys just because of how good they are. But, man, you got to be careful. Steph, I would assume that he's back after a rest day. LaMelo Ball is actually questionable for the Hornets game on Sunday. They have a 4-game week, and it's actually kind of backloaded. So I'm probably playing LaMelo this week, believe it or not, even if I think he might sit in one half of that back-to-back. De'Aaron Fox is probably a rest candidate this week. He fantasy rest, not reality rest. Sacramento has a back-to-back Sunday, Monday. He's doubtful for Sunday's game with glute issues. He's got a sore butt. And then if he misses Monday also, then you're down to a two-game week on De'Aaron, which is still barely enough, but you're also playing with fire because what if this thing lasts a little bit longer and you get stuck with one? So Fox, you can make the call on whatever happens on Monday. If he plays Monday, you go. If he doesn't play Monday, that's a no. LeBron, he's in for me. Cam Johnson is out. Do not start him. Actually, believe it or not, that's everybody on this 26 through 50 range. And it gives us a nice little segue into a reminder to hang out with our buddies over at BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. They've got the earliest odds, in-game live betting, and the ability to watch the action as it happens. That's what you're doing, right? You don't want to bet on a game and then come back 3 hours later and find out what happened. The whole point is to enjoy the ups and downs, the sphincter puckering action. And you can do that with all the good stuff. They got playoff football coming up, NBA, college hoops, NHL, UFC. So head there today. They've been so awesome for us. And really, like, the reason that I haven't had to, everything that I do is free right now is basically because of BetOnline. So head there today. Don't forget to use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, also because of them. That's why I can also keep things free for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline. The game starts here. Let's go to 51 through 75 as we continue mosey through these names. Tari Eason, I think you just got to keep him on your bench until he actually plays a ball game. Jimmy Butler is obviously out. Brandon Miller is, much like LaMelo, questionable for the Hornets game on Sunday. If he plays and it's an obvious yes, I probably play both of those guys this week. As I mentioned, it's 4 games and they're off Monday, and 3 of their 4 games come Thursday through the end of the weekend, which gives these guys more time to get right for at least 3 would be the hope. Jordan Poole just got ruled out, but this is, Wizards accidentally starting to win a few games. They also have a 5-7 coming up that starts on Tuesday. So I would probably start Poole this coming week, even if you think he might take a rest game in there. DeJounte Murray is a start. Jalen Suggs is a bench. Jaylen Brown, basically the answer is what happens to him on Sunday. Boston does not have a good schedule this week. I am not taking a shot on Brown unless I know for a fact that he's in for all 3. He's not good enough this year for a 2-game week start. At least not in 9-cat. Points leagues, maybe. 9-cat, no. So if he plays on Sunday, great. If he doesn't, then he's out for me. That's a, whatever happens next type of guy. Tyus Jones was out due to illness in Phoenix's last game. They have a 5-game week. I have to start Tyus Jones because even if he misses a game, you still got 4. Even if he misses 2, you still got 3. There's so much wiggle room there. You go for it. All these guys with injured tags, I don't think you can play. What's the latest on Paolo? I guess he's getting his conditioning up right now. I wouldn't start him until we actually see him back in a game. Cam Thomas is out for a couple of weeks again, so you can put him back on your bench as well. Bilal Coulibaly, who missed the last 1.5 games. It was like 1.5 with an illness. Questionable, but again, big scheduling run coming up for the Wizards, so I'm going to start Bilal. I am not starting Ayo. Keegan Murray, again, we'll have information on him because they play on Monday. And if he's in on Monday, then he's a go. If he's not, obviously he's not, because he's not good enough in a 2-game week. And he's barely good enough in a 3-game week because at this point, let's be honest, you could probably find a 4-gamer that's going to give you more than Keegan Murray in 3. So that one doesn't really matter. RJ Barrett is an interesting one. I don't like him in 9-cat anyway. Points leagues probably play him this coming week. They've been off for a bit. And their schedule gets a little heavier Wednesday through Saturday. So hopefully he'll be good to go for 3 of those in a points league. Category league, you don't want RJ Barrett going anyway. Alex Caruso, Kelly Oubre. I mean, we're into the dregs now. anybody that's even remotely questionable, you're not playing once you get into that top 150 range. And that is your weekly. That's your weekly preview. All right, here's the daily preview. And this is where things always get a little bit more hairy. There are very few teams that have interesting schedules this week. And I started, you guys might notice, by the way, if you're listening along with us, this is a really hard part to just listen to without a visual. Oh, it sounds like RJ Barrett is expecting to play, by the way. So there you go for your points leaguers. Please, if you're listening along, go to the show description and pull up whatever I forget what I've called it. I called it like the Dan Besbris mega Google sheet or something like that. And one of the tabs is the streaming calendar 2024. Pull that tab up, scroll over to week 12. That way you guys can see along with what I'm doing. And then YouTubers, you guys can watch it right as we are. I'm going to make it big too. I messed with StreamYard, which is what I use to put these shows out. And I created a new backdrop that puts my face extraordinarily small. Also, good friend Maddie G, friend of the program, has put together some boards that I can use. I just have to sort it all out and move some faces around. So you guys will see some new backgrounds and new templates here over the next week or two. So that's kind of fun. Where were we here? We were about to get into the weekly stuff or into the daily stuff. So now I assume you guys are all looking at this with me, which should make your lives much more simple, because then when I'm talking about stuff, you can actually see it instead of just trying to imagine this crazy grid. And you need a crazy grid, because to stream effectively, you got to see how all the pieces line up. You guys know what I do is I look at teams that have bad schedules and I try to move away from them at the right moment. Right now, there's really only one team with a bad schedule. And even that team, the schedule isn't that bad. And that's the Sacramento Kings, who play on Monday. So, good, very beginning to the week. But then, as I'm highlighting on the screen, have 3 days off. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the Kings do not play. And frankly, their schedule sucks for about 2 weeks. Starting on Tuesday, they play 2 games the rest of this coming week. They go 3 times next week, and then they're off Monday, Tuesday of week 14 before their schedule does finally pick up just a little bit after that. And not that much. But this is a light run for the Kings. That's what, we can count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games over 7, 14, 15 days. 5 games over 15 days. That's a very, very light schedule. If you're playing only a third of the time over more than 2 weeks, you are not playing very often. And that's basically what happens with the Kings after Monday. It's interesting how 6 games over 16 days doesn't seem that bad. It's not good. It's a pair of 3-game weeks and then a slow start to the following week. But you remove that 1 game, 1 day, and the percentage really does drop pretty good. So what do you do here? Well, if you have a King, you can obviously just hang on to them through Monday. Someone like a Keon Ellis makes a lot of sense right now with Keegan Murray was down and Ellis picked up minutes. And now if De'Aaron Fox misses time, that's going to be more safe minutes for Keon. But then on Tuesday, not to say that you should be dropping Keon Ellis because he's been playing well. Maybe Trey Lyles is a better example of this. Trey Lyles has been putting up some numbers lately, not massive ones, but decent ones. And that probably goes away mostly when the Kings get healthy. Keon Ellis is a guy you might hold through this stuff just to see if that role persists. But maybe you don't. I don't like head-to-head. Maybe that is also a droppable spot. The thing is, there are teams this week that have 4 games, Tuesday through Sunday, where the Kings only have 2. And you guys know my rule of thumb on daily streaming is to try not to make any roster move that you're planning on adjusting again in less than 4 days. Meaning, if you're picking up someone, doesn't matter what team, take multiple examples here, on a Tuesday here after the Sacramento Kings game on Monday, make sure you're holding that player for 4 days. And, by the way, you can get a 2-game bounce in those 4 days. So a lot of what I look for when I'm making my, and sometimes it's not like a long stream, like 4 days is a medium stream. 1 and 2 days, those are short streams. I try to avoid those if I can. 4 days, I think, is very reasonable. That's a medium stream that allows you to basically stream 2 roster spots per week because you make a move every 4 days, twice roughly in a week. You have 4 moves. You use 2 moves per slot. But there's also spots where you can go longer than 4 days. That's the traditional long streaming. 6 days, 7 days, 9 days, probably the longest, 9. Once in a blue moon, you might go 11 for like a team that goes 7 games in 11 days. It's a pretty heavy schedule, but it's out there. 5 games in 7 days is the optimal. That's the best long streaming, to mash 5 games into 7 days, because you only have to use 1 roster move for an entire week, and you basically max out the games per day other than 3 out of 4 or a back-to-back, which I try to avoid. That's too short. You're using too many roster moves to get through a week. So 3 games in 4 nights is kind of like the fun little midpoint. It's a very good ratio of games per day. All very close to 5 and 7, which I think is like 71-ish % of the days have games, but you get an extra 3 days out of your stream. Those are the two. The reason I prefer 5 and 7 is because you now can use your 3 other roster moves on. You could stream 2 other slots. You could stream 1 other slot really hard. You could stream 1 other slot with 2 moves and then save 1 for an injury. It just gives you a lot of wiggle room. But that's more of a theory thing than an actual what's happening this coming week. This coming week, if you pivot off of Sacramento, because they only play 1 time over 5 days with the 3 days off situation going on, you don't even need the 5th day. But you could use it. It gives you more options because a lot of teams go 3 times over 5 days, and only a few teams go 3 times over 4. The teams that go 3 times over 4 days that match up with Sacramento would be Washington. Let's see if there's anybody else actually that fits that mold. And I think New Orleans, Golden State, and that's it. But if we highlight 5 days, you can say, oh, what teams go 3 times Tuesday through Saturday? You have a lot of choices. Atlanta, Charlotte, we already talked about Golden State, Detroit, Denver, like the list goes on and on and on. Houston, the Lakers, Miami, Minnesota. It's like half the league. So you could do that, and that would still gain you 2 games against what you had in Sacramento. The only downside to going that way, instead of going the Washington, New Orleans, or what did I say the third team was, Golden State route, where they play 3 times Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Again, that's 3 teams that do that. It's a narrower bucket. Oh, Denver also in there. Sorry, there's 4 teams. Denver, Golden State, New Orleans, and Washington. Those 4 teams. That allows you to make your next move on Saturday and continue to pile up games in that roster spot for the week. So that's why that's the move there. Washington is the preferred move on Tuesday. And that's why I highlighted this Tuesday game for Washington in orange, because it's the start of a 5-game and 7-day span. Not only do you get the 3 games in 4 days, but you can hold a Wizards streamer all the way through Monday of the following week. That takes a lot of the pressure off. But let's say you don't have a Wizard that you want to pick up and stream. Let's say that the guys, Justin Champagne's and the Bub Carringtons and whoever, let's say these guys are already added in your league and you got to go a different direction. New Orleans has very few options. I don't know if Jose Alvarado is going to play in the back-to-back. If he does, that would be maybe an interesting one. I don't really want Brandon Boston, but, maybe. Golden State, not a lot of options there. Denver, not a lot of options there either. Maybe you could argue like a Strother or a Peyton Watson, which is why I think it was important to just throw it out there. Hey, it's not as good to go 3 games in 5 days on that medium stream. But if you had to go that route, you could do it, and it opens up the whole board. So that's how you get off of Sacramento. Funny thing, too, is at the end of those 5 days, you could go back to the King if you liked him. You could even do it on the 4th day. You could make whoever you pick up in there a 3-day stream that someone plays twice over Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, excuse me. They play twice, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then you just go back to Sacramento if it was a player that you actually just wanted to hang on to for a longer time. Of course, the problem there is that someone else might pick up. Let's say it's Keon Ellis that you dropped on Tuesday, which I don't think I would do, but let's say you did. Someone else might pick them up by Thursday, and you might not get them back on Friday. So something to keep kind of in the back of your head. Otherwise, schedules this week are really hard to improve upon. The 3-game teams, Boston has a little window here at the beginning of the week where they go one time Monday through Thursday. So you could pivot off of Boston on Monday and then just not worry about it. But the only place you can go that you could get through the whole week without having to make another move is Phoenix. We'll get to that in just one second. So let's say Boston is the team you're looking at Monday through Thursday. I think there's one other one, if I'm remembering right. Quick scroll. Oklahoma City is the other one that goes one time the first 4 days of the week. But unlike Sacramento, it's not the very first day of the week. Like with the Kings, you hold on through Monday and then you make a move on Tuesday. That's actually almost preferable. It's the worst scheduling pocket because they go 3 days without a game. But streaming off of Sacramento is simpler because you just get off of Sacramento after Monday. With Boston and OKC, they play Tuesday and Wednesday respectively. So Oklahoma City, if you're sitting on a Thunder on Monday and you're like, damn, I really like this guy, I want to make it through to Wednesday, at that point, you probably should just hold them forever. Because at that point, they go 3 times Wednesday through the end of the week. If you're going to pivot off of Oklahoma City, you got to do it on Monday. And if you're pivoting off of anyone on Monday, you're going to Phoenix. As far as Boston goes, you could make it through Tuesday if you really wanted that first game from the Celtics. The problem is, by then, you're not going to get somebody playing 4 times the rest of the week. So if you really like your Celtics streamer, you're effectively giving up the opportunity to mush an extra game played into week 12. You can still mush an extra game into Boston's schedule because their schedule gets terrible after Tuesday. It's what I would call not great for this week. It's a 3-game week, and I wouldn't even call it back-loaded. It's just not front-loaded. But after Tuesday, they go 2 times the end of this week, and then they only go once the first 4 days of next week again. I mean, you could even stretch it all the way out. Like Boston goes 4 times over 11 days. That's what their schedule is right now. After Tuesday, they go 3 times over 9 days. That's even worse. So at that point, you got to get the hell off of Boston. In fact, and I didn't look at this before the show, there might be a team starting on Wednesday that goes 6 times in those 9 days. I don't, maybe not. Maybe only 5 is the best you're going to get there. But Boston on Wednesday is definitely a get the hell out kind of spot. Boston on Saturday is an even more intense get out kind of spot. No, that's not true. I guess it's all sort of equally crappy. They've got a bunch of little pockets here that I'm highlighting as I talk where they have 1 game over 4 days that you can try to avoid. But here's the thing. How good is your Boston streamer anyway? Who are we talking about here? Luke Cornett? Sam Hauser? These guys are not so good that you gotta hang on through Tuesday. I would far prefer to go venture into Phoenix and get a 5-gamer. Phoenix is the optimal schedule this week. We're finally looping back around to Phoenix. So with Boston, with Oklahoma City, my preference is to get the hell off immediately and get to Phoenix. There aren't a ton of options with the Suns when they're healthy, but how often are the Suns healthy? Grayson Allen is a very intriguing option. He played 31 minutes in their loss in Indiana on Saturday, and I wouldn't expect him to get 31 most days, but I would think 22 to 26 is within reason. 5 games at 23, 24 minutes a night, 120 minutes, that's a lot of basketball in a week. If Royce O'Neal happens to resurface, that would be an interesting one, but he's not there. If somebody dropped Yusuf Nurkic, he would be an interesting one. Josh Okogie probably doesn't play enough minutes to get there as these guys come back because he only got 18 minutes on Saturday. But again, I mean, 18, 20 minutes over 5 days, you're talking about close to 100 minutes. That's, for most streamers, that's like a 4-game week. But again, options not super heavy on the Phoenix side. You have other options if you wanted to, like if you're talking about Boston or Oklahoma City, and you didn't want to go Phoenix and hold for the entire week, you could go with the 4-4 approach, which is what we've talked about in the past. I wouldn't go lower than 4, but it does open things up for you a little bit. It gives you Detroit. They've got some streamers right now with Jaden Ivey down. Asar Thompson's going to get picked up off his massive game, but he, to me, profiles more as a schedule level play when the stuff all averages out. Malik Beasley should have been added, but if he wasn't, he's a guy that actually you should probably hold long term. Tim Hardaway Jr. is probably a schedule streamer, 3 games in 4 days. Isaiah Stewart could be considered a schedule streamer for 3 games in 4 days. Miami, every fringe guy on the Heat, Nikola Jovic, Terry Rozier, Haywood Highsmith, Duncan Robinson, anybody in that group that's healthy. Minnesota, if Jaden McDaniels is not on a roster, he would be a schedule level play. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Portland, they've got plenty. Tumani Kamara is maybe my favorite schedule level guy on earth. Toronto, I actually think Grady Dick slides back to being a schedule level guy. But otherwise, I don't know that there's many options there. All that to say, yes, we just went through a bunch of names. Don't worry about writing them all down. Like, you can look them back up again on Monday morning if you need to. But it did open up more options beyond Phoenix. The difference there is you'll have to make a move on Friday. So you cover up your Boston and OKC 1 game in 4 days with somebody playing 3 times in 4 days. But those teams that we just talked about, besides Phoenix, only go once over the week's final 3 days. So against Boston there, if you're just comparing it against Boston and OKC, you would actually be a -1 in games played. So if you held that streamer for the entire week, you'd only be a +1. It's +2 for the first 4 days, -1 for the last 3 days. So you got to make another move on Friday. And at that point, Friday's not the greatest day to back up another stream. New York goes 3 times starting on Friday over 4 days, and Washington, because they're finishing up that 5-7 we talked about earlier that starts on Tuesday. So on Friday, you'd want to go New York or Washington. The problem with that is if someone else went Washington, they did it on Tuesday, and so the options aren't going to be all that useful for you at that point. But it is a way to use just 2 roster moves on that slot. So let's say you came into the week with Sam Hauser or Cason Wallace or someone that's a streamer on Boston or OKC. You use a move on Monday. You use a move on Friday. That'll get you 8 days, 6 games over 8 days. Boston's roster slot, if you had just left it untouched, has only 3 games over those 8 days. So you've used 2 moves and you've added 3 games over 8 days. That's not bad. OKC, same story. 2 moves, 3 games over 8 days. Here's the extra fun part. If you were talking about Boston, they don't play on Tuesday of the following week, so you can use another move and load up a little bit. Although, just be warned, on January 17th, we're going to want to go back on to Boston. I know we're looking way down the line, but they have a 5-7 that starts on that Friday. Is there anything else I wanted to cover on today's show? I think that was most of it. Yeah, I think that was it. Come hang out with us on Twitter. Every day I put out a good and bad schedule pair of tweets, and you can try to pair them up. You take the bad schedule, like I did it today for Sunday as an example. Let me see if I can find the Sunday one. So Atlanta has 1 game over 4 days starting today on Sunday. Atlanta has a pretty traditional 3-game week. Once you get to tomorrow, they go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It's annoying. They're on a bad run. They have 3 games over 9 days from today all the way through the following Monday. But if you don't do a move with Atlanta on Sunday, you should wait and probably do it on Friday would be my suggestion there. But like, you could pair up a Hawk today. Somebody, like I just said, they got 3 games over 8 or 9 days, depending on what you're looking at. You could go Golden State that has 4 games over 6 days. That would gain you 2 games there. Who else could you move to on Sunday if you want to sort of like preload it? The point is, the good schedules, Washington has 6 games in 9 days. That was something we talked about already. So if you pivoted from a Hawk to a Wizard on Sunday, you get a 3-game bump over 9 days on 1 roster move. So another good reason to follow on social media. You can pair up the good schedule and the bad schedule tweets, and then you know what direction to go. Memphis, by the way, also has only one game over 4 days, but slightly more over 9. Atlanta's the very light one right now. New Orleans also a pretty good schedule starting today that goes through a little bit. By the way, Keegan Murray just got ruled expected to play on Sunday. So if he's like your 10th best guy for this coming week, you can probably slot him back into your lineup. And we already talked about Sacramento Kings issues. This does make it a little harder to argue for a Trey Lyles anything. So, yep, follow on Twitter. Like and subscribe. Please hit a like button on our trade deadline live show. We want to preload that bad boy as much as humanly possible. Subscribe to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Thank you all for hanging out with us all the time, because I just do shows constantly like an idiot. But I love you guys for it. At Dan Besbris on Twitter, DanBesbris, Old Man Squad on Blue Sky is where all of those things go out. And that's it for today. That's the only show on Sunday. Monday, we'll come looping back around with a big weekend recap episode, and then we'll try to settle back in. Also, coming up on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball over the next couple of weeks, we're going to gather up with all the analysts, and we're going to do some stash shows, which, by the way, I will put my foot down if someone's like, here's a guy you should stash that's not playing at all. We'll have a little fight about it, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to keep a running board of all the names so we can look back at it. It's not to like hold people to the fire. It's fun. If somebody gets one that's a big winner, we can be like, this is the guy that got it. I'm not going to be like, oh, this dude told you to stash this guy and he sucks. That's a waste of my time. That's no fun at all. This should be fun. My job here is to keep it fun. Winning is fun too. All right. That's it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody.